Hi guys, welcome to another video from Creativa Solutions. I'm Anthony and you're watching the Accounting for Non-Accountants video series. Please post comments and questions below and subscribe to this channel. Visit the website www.creativasolutions.com for more content and resources to help you. The reason why we've got Accounting for Non-Accountants, many of you are either working in a role which deals with some accounting. It could be budgets, it could be planning for the next year. There is going to be some accounting that you're going to have to be familiar with to understand the concepts when it comes to the decision making. Alright, so to continue where we left off last time, we spoke about the background on accounting. In this video, we're going to expand a bit more and we're going to be looking at some of the uses of financial accounting. Right, so accounting records the business transactions in order to provide useful information for decision making. We established that in the previous video, and we know that a transaction involves a buyer and a seller. Both the buyer and the seller will enter into a transaction, and that creates data that can be used to create information, and the accounting process is what creates that information. Right, remember, it's a process of record keeping records, collating all that data in order to make the information, and that's important for decision making. Why do we need this accounting as part of the business? Well, it definitely forms part of the business's DNA. Okay, it shows evidence of economic activity. Remember, businesses are created to offer value, either in the form of a product or a service. So having accounting records shows evidence of economic activity. It's also a way to measure performance. You can't establish if a business is good or bad just by looking at maybe its assets or its liabilities. All of these concepts we'll build on more as we go through more and more theory. For now, I just want you to think about performance as how well is the business actually doing? Is the business succeeding? Is the business making a success of the products and services that it's offering to its customers? And then obviously the communication is something important that we've looked at as well. We spoke about information being imperative for good decision making. If we don't have good information, we can't make good decisions. We're going to focus on some of the uses. Okay, so who uses the financial statements? Okay, we know what the uses could be in terms of decision making, but we need to be more specific. So I want you to now think about who uses financial statements and why. Take a minute and then we'll discuss the theory. Okay, so who uses financial statements and why? Well, you would have thought about lots and lots of different examples, I hope, and they can be grouped into two main categories: internal and external users. And there are so many different users that we can actually consider. Right, if we had to group them, internal would be inside the business. Okay, so users that would be internal, okay, very closely related to the entity, the business entity, or external, outside the actual business entity. Right, those are the two main groups that we'll be looking at. Right, so let's have a look at some of them in more detail. Okay, so some examples that you could have considered, and the why is important. Okay, remember, why are they going to be using this information? Right, so the first, managers. Would they be internal or external? Well, remember, manager would generally be someone helping the business to run and control the day-to-day running of the entity. So managers would be more internal. Okay, in terms of decision making, managers are going to be responsible for different departments. So all the departments are going to have to work together in order to create value as a company as a whole. The next would be shareholders. Again, these could be internal or external. Internal stakeholders, employees, could also be shareholders in a particular business. Shareholders could also be external parties that hold shares, right, as part of the larger corporation. Right, so shareholders are also going to be a user of financial accounting because they want to know how is the company performing. Remember, shareholders are looking at performance. How has the company performed over the last 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, depending on their view. Then we've got investors. The investors are providing capital. Right, capital we'll learn about later. Capital in its simple term would be resources. It could be monetary resources that are given to a business that allows the business to operate. And investors aren't just going to give any business capital. Investors aren't going to give resources. Right, they're not going to give their cash, money to a company that has no evidence of economic activity. Right, remember we spoke about that important note previously. We need some sort of evidence of economic activity which creates a viable business that investors can consider as a potential investment to obviously receive a return. Then we've got the CEO. Remember, the Chief Executive Officer is responsible for the entire business, and they're normally compensated for the company's performance. Right, so CEOs normally get incentives in terms of bonuses that are paid based on certain requirements in terms of performance, and that could be dependent on the results, and the results will then be created from the actual accounting records. Okay, the records create a basis for reward for that particular individual. Right, government, also a user of accounting. Government would definitely be external purely because they're not within the business, they're outside the business. And why would government want to use accounting? Well, government is going to be collecting tax revenue from the actual businesses. So government needs to know how much tax to collect. Where did they generate those revenue? Okay, it could be revenue that could possibly be excluded in forms of being maybe exempt, okay, from the tax system, right, or specifically included in the tax system. It all depends on the legislation of that particular country, okay, that the business is operating in. Right, but government is going to want to know how successful the company was over the last 12 months, and they'll then collect a certain amount of tax revenue from that particular business. Right, and the last example that I've got here is competitors. Again, accounting is very useful for the competitors because remember, it's information, and we know information can be used to make decisions. So why would a competitor want to look at your accounting records? Well, many different businesses, okay, would be looking at trying to grow, and large corporations are public. And if those corporations are public, anyone would be able to access that information, and competitors can actually view that information and they can see, well, which products are more successful in terms of generating income. They could look at geography, where's the company operating. They could look at profitability. They could look at the amount of debt in that particular entity versus the equity. So all of these concepts we'll look at in more detail later. The point I'm trying to get across is users are very, very broad. Everyone can use the financial statements, okay, in terms of the representation of the accounting records in order to do what? Make decisions. Users of financial accounting or the accounting in general want the data to be processed as information And once they've got information, that's the key when it comes to making good decisions. And it's a way to strategize as well in terms of what are we going to do going forward. So guys, that's the lesson today in terms of users of financial accounting. We're building on the basics in terms of our background. I hope you watched the previous video. If not, please go back and have a look at video 1 in this particular video series. They're going to build and you're going to get more and more information to help you better understand accounting, focused on the non-accountants. Right, so for you non-accountants out there, if you like the video, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, follow us, and please comment below. If you have any questions about the content, let me know in the comments section. Perhaps tell me about some of the users you can think of that hasn't been mentioned in this particular video. Alright guys, take care, until next time.